The first bite made Ben Carter put down his fork. Across the table, his 16-year-old daughter was still talking about college applications, unaware that her father had stopped breathing normally. The chicken tasted of smoke, orange peel, dark molasses, and the smallest trace of coffee. The sauce had been reduced until it clung to the meat. Underneath, it was the warm bite of black pepper and the sweetness of onions cooked so slowly they nearly disappeared. Ben knew that recipe. He had watched his late wife make it every November for 18 years. Leah called it ember chicken. She had never written it in a cookbook. She had never posted it online. She had never even given the complete recipe to her own sister. Yet there it was, being served inside a crowded Cincinnati restaurant by people Ben had never met. "Dad." Emma tapped the table. Ben looked toward the open kitchen. A woman in a white chef's coat stood over a blue, enameled pot, scraping the bottom with a wooden spoon. 3 slow circles, then 1 tap against the rim, exactly the way Leah used to do it. "Where did you hear about this place?" Ben asked. Emma frowned. "You picked it." "No, I didn't. You said we should try somewhere new for Mom's birthday." Ben looked down at the menu. Second table. Tonight's special, Chef Celia's ember-roasted chicken. Featured tomorrow on Channel 8's Taste of the City. By the following evening, thousands of viewers would hear a stranger call Leah's recipe her own. Ben stood. Emma caught his sleeve. "What are you doing?" "I'm asking a question." "That is not your asking a question face." Ben took 2 20s from his wallet and placed them beneath the water glass. Even angry, he would not punish the server. "Wait here. That has never made me wait anywhere." He crossed the dining room before she could follow. The hostess tried to stop him at the kitchen entrance, but the chef looked up and raised one hand. She was in her early 50s, with silver beginning at her temples and a burned scar crossing one wrist. Her expression was calm, though her shoulders were not. "Can I help you?" she asked. Ben pointed toward the blue pot. "Where did you get that recipe?" A cook carrying a tray slowed down. The chef studied Ben's face. "Did something happen with your meal?" "My wife created that dish." The room seemed to narrow around them. "My wife's name was Leah Carter," Ben continued. "She died 3 years ago. That recipe belonged to her." Something changed in the chef's eyes. Not guilt. Recognition. She set down the spoon. "You're Ben." He had expected denial. Maybe indignation. He had not expected her to know his name. Emma reached the doorway behind him. The chef glanced at her. "And you must be Emma." Emma stopped beside her father. "How do you know us?" The chef removed her apron and handed it to one of the cooks. "My name is Celia Grant," she said. "Your mother was my friend." Ben felt the words like a door shutting in his face. "Leah never mentioned you." Celia's expression hardened. "That does not mean I stole from her." "Then tell me how you have her recipe." "Not in my kitchen. Tomorrow, you're going on television and taking credit for it. The menu says my name because I am the chef. It says ember chicken. That is what Leah called our final version." Ben stared at her. "Our version?" Celia looked toward the dining room, where customers had begun turning in their seats. Then she looked back at Ben. "You can sit down and have a private conversation," she said, "or you can keep accusing me in front of my employees. But decide quickly. I have 72 people waiting for dinner." Ben wanted to demand answers right there. He wanted to pull the pot from the stove and carry it out with him. Instead, he looked at Emma. She was watching him with the same guarded expression Leah used whenever his certainty arrived before his judgment. "Fine," he said. "We'll talk." Celia led them into a narrow office behind the pantry. The room held a metal desk, 2 mismatched chairs, and shelves packed with invoices. She closed the door, but remained standing. "Leah came here every Thursday for almost 2 years," she said. "That's impossible. It happened whether you find it possible or not. She had treatment on Thursdays. Her appointments ended at noon. She came here afterward." Ben remembered dropping Leah at the cancer center. He remembered offering to wait. She always told him to go home, answer emails, and pick up Emma from school. He had believed she wanted time alone. "Why?" Emma asked. Celia's voice softened. "At first, because food tasted wrong after chemotherapy. Everything was metal or salt. I was helping with a cooking group for patients. Your mom came once, complained that my soup tasted like wet cardboard, then returned the next week with written suggestions. Emma smiled before she could stop herself. That sounds like her. It was rude, Celia said. It was also correct. Ben did not smile. The chicken, he said. Celia leaned against the desk. It started with a dish my mother made when money was tight. Leah changed the citrus. I changed the spice blend. She added coffee after accidentally pouring from the wrong jar. She never made mistakes like that. Celia looked at him. Everyone makes mistakes when no one is watching. Ben heard the edge beneath the sentence. He glanced at the shelves. On the highest one sat a black notebook held closed by a red rubber band. Is that hers? It belongs to me. Let me see it. No. If it contains my wife's recipe, I have a right to know what's inside. You have a right to ask questions. You do not have a right to take everything she touched. Ben stepped closer. Celia did not move. Emma spoke quietly. Dad. He looked at his daughter. She was not warning Celia. She was warning him. Ben forced his hands open. What proof do you have that Leah gave you permission to serve it? Celia crossed her arms. The fact that we served it together 12 times before she died. Ben felt heat rise into his face. That is not proof. No, Celia said. It's a memory. Those count too, even when you weren't there. The words landed harder than they should have. Ben reached into his coat and took out a business card. My attorney will contact you in the morning. Do not serve the dish again until we settle this. Celia did not take the card. You have no attorney for this. I will by morning. Then tell your future attorney to call before 10. I have a television crew arriving at 11. Ben placed the card on the desk. Emma stayed still for a moment. Did my mom sit in the dining room? She asked. Celia's face changed again. Sometimes. Booth 6, near the radiator. She said it was the only warm seat in the building. Emma nodded. Then she followed her father outside. A cold rain had begun falling over the street. Ben walked toward the parking lot, but Emma remained beneath the restaurant awning. You didn't ask what they talked about, she said. I asked how Celia got the recipe. That isn't the same thing. She refused to show us anything. Maybe because you walked into her kitchen and called her a thief. Ben turned around. Your mother kept this from us. Emma pulled her hood over her head. She kept it from you. Before Ben could answer, she stepped into the rain and walked toward the car. At home, Emma went directly upstairs. Ben remained in the kitchen, looking at the empty space above the stove where Leah's blue enamel pot had once hung. After her death, her sister had taken several pieces of cookware. Ben had not asked which ones. At the time, objects seemed like poor substitutes for a person. Now he wished he had counted every pan. At 2 in the morning, he heard Emma's bedroom door open. She came downstairs for water, saw him at the table, and stopped. Did you post something? He asked. Her eyes shifted toward her phone. Emma. I posted the food. What did you say? Nothing that wasn't true. Ben held out his hand. She reluctantly passed him the phone. The video began with the plate of chicken. Then it showed Ben standing in the kitchen doorway, demanding to know where Celia had gotten the recipe. Text appeared across the screen. My dad found my dead mom's secret recipe being sold by a stranger. The video had already been viewed 43,000 times. Comments multiplied beneath it. That restaurant stole from a dead woman. Call the news. This family deserves justice. One person had posted Celia's business address. Ben's stomach tightened. Delete it. I turned off the location. Delete the entire video. Why? You said she stole it. I said I wanted answers. You threatened her with a lawyer. That is different from sending thousands of people after her. Emma grabbed the phone back. You cared when it was Mom's name being erased. I still care. Then why are you protecting Celia? I'm protecting us from doing something we cannot take back. Emma stared at him. You already did that in the restaurant. She returned upstairs and locked her door. By 7 the next morning, The video had passed 200,000 views. Ben drove to second table before work, intending to apologize for the post and demand a real conversation. He arrived to find water pouring beneath the restaurant's rear door. Celia stood in the alley, wearing rubber boots and shouting into her phone. Two cooks carried boxes of food through the rain. A pipe had burst above the pantry. Ben spent 24 years maintaining public school buildings. He knew the sound of water running where it should not. "Where's the main shutoff?" he called. Celia turned. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then another ceiling tile collapsed inside. "Basement," she said. "North wall. The valve is stuck." Ben removed his coat. "Emma, stay in the car." She climbed out behind him. "That worked well last night." Inside, water fell through the ceiling in silver sheets. Ben found the basement stairs and descended with Celia. The shutoff valve was rusted nearly solid. "You have a wrench?" he asked. She handed him one too small. "This is for opening soda bottles." It was in the toolbox. "You have a dishonest toolbox. Fix the pipe first. Insult my equipment later." Together, they forced the valve closed. Upstairs, Emma and the staff moved produce from the flooded pantry. Ben climbed a ladder, located the split section, and made a temporary clamp from rubber sheeting and two hose brackets. By 9, the flooding had stopped. The pantry floor was covered in water, soggy cardboard, and floating bay leaves. Celia stood beside the blue pot, which one of the cooks had rescued from the stove. "Thank you," she said. Ben wrung water from his shirt sleeve. "My daughter posted the video. I told her to remove it." Emma looked up from a box of onions. "I did remove it. You waited 6 hours. I was asleep for 4 of them." Celia almost smiled. Then her phone rang again. She read the message and placed the phone face down. "The television station canceled," she said. Ben looked at her. "Because of the video? They said they don't want to become part of an ownership dispute." "I didn't contact them." "You did not have to." A cook approached Celia. "We can still open for dinner if we move prep to the front." Celia looked at the damaged ceiling. "No. Everyone goes home with full pay. We can stay." That was not a request. The employees began cleaning in silence. Ben watched Celia open a ledger and calculate something on a small calculator. "You can afford to close?" he asked. "No." "Then why send them home with pay?" "Because the pipe is my problem, not theirs." Ben looked toward Emma. His daughter had heard. Celia closed the ledger. "The recipe is not stolen," she said. "But I understand why you thought it might be. Come back after 5. I'll show you enough to prove that." "Enough." "Enough to answer the question you asked. Not enough to satisfy every question you have about Leah." Ben wanted to argue. Instead, he nodded. It was the first boundary Celia had set that he chose not to challenge. At 5:30, Ben and Emma returned. The restaurant was dark except for the kitchen lights. Fans hummed over the wet pantry floor. Celia placed the black notebook on a table. She kept one hand on it. "Leah and I started recording versions of the dish after our 4th attempt," she said. "The first 3 were terrible." Emma opened the notebook. The pages contained dates, measurements, crossed-out ingredients, and comments written in 2 different hands. One entry read, "Too sweet. Celia is pretending it isn't. Reduce molasses." Beneath it, in darker ink, "Ben probably thinks salt is a personality." Emma laughed. Ben stared at the handwriting. Leah's capital letters leaned forward. She always wrote as though the words were in a hurry. He touched the edge of the page, but did not turn it. "Why didn't she tell me?" he asked. Celia sat across from him. "You would have told her to rest. She was sick. She was alive. I was taking care of her. You were managing her." Ben lifted his head. Celia did not look away. "You handled every appointment," she continued. "Every insurance call. Every prescription. You were good at it." Leah said you could turn fear into a schedule faster than anyone she had ever met. "That kept our family functioning." "Yes." "Then do not say it like I failed her." "I didn't say you failed her. You implied it. I said she needed somewhere she was not a patient, a wife, or someone being protected." Emma turned another page. A photograph had been taped inside the notebook. Leah stood in the restaurant kitchen wearing Celia's chef coat. She was thinner than Ben remembered from that year, but she was laughing. Flour covered one cheek. Celia stood beside her holding the blue pot. Behind them was a handwritten sign. Thursday Test Kitchen. No husbands. No medical advice. Ben lowered himself into the chair. He had spent months beside Leah's hospital bed. He knew the names of every medication she took. He knew which nurse brought warm blankets without being asked. He knew how many steps it was from the parking garage to the oncology floor. He had not known about Thursdays. When did she give you permission to put it on the menu? He asked. 6 months before she died. Was it written down? No. Then we are back where we started. Celia's patience broke. No, Ben. We are not. You started by calling me a thief. Now you know your wife stood in my kitchen, developed the dish with me, and served it to paying customers. Once a month for a fundraiser is not the same as building a business around it. This restaurant was Leah's idea too. Ben looked at her sharply. Celia pulled the notebook back. That is all for tonight. What does that mean? It means you came here asking about a recipe. You are now asking about decisions your wife made without you. I have a right to understand those decisions. You may, but not by treating me like a witness you can corner. Emma closed the notebook gently. Can we come back? She asked. Celia looked at her, not Ben. Yes. On the way home, Ben said very little. At a traffic light, Emma broke the silence. She was happy in that picture. I saw. I haven't seen a new picture of her in a long time. Ben tightened his hands around the steering wheel. We have hundreds of pictures. I mean one I didn't already know. The light turned green. Ben drove home without answering. That night, he opened an old storage box in the hall closet. Inside were Leah's calendars, medical receipts, and the folders he had organized during treatment. Every Thursday afternoon contained the same handwritten initials. St. Second table. Ben had seen them dozens of times and assumed they meant speech therapy. Beneath the calendars lay an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, Marrow and Vine mistakes ambition for flavor. The review had been published 11 years earlier under the name Caleb North. Ben sat on the floor. Marrow and Vine had been Celia's first restaurant. He remembered it clearly. He remembered the undercooked lamb, the cold sauce, and the dining room manager who kept apologizing. He also remembered the email Celia had sent the following morning, explaining that a gas line failure had shut down half the kitchen and that she had left during service because her teenage son had been taken to the hospital after a car accident. She had asked Ben to return. He never had. His editor wanted the review immediately. Ben had told himself that customers did not pay less because a chef was having a terrible night. The review was republished in 12 newspapers. Within 6 months, Marrow and Vine closed. Ben folded the clipping before Emma could see it. For almost 15 years, Caleb North had been one of the most feared restaurant critics in the Midwest. No photograph appeared beside the column. No biography named his hometown. Readers knew only that Caleb North could fill a dining room with praise or empty one with 600 carefully chosen words. Ben stopped writing under the name after Leah died. He had never told Emma. The identity was protected by contracts, an old publishing company, and the fact that few people imagined a school maintenance supervisor had once decided which chefs deserved to survive. The following afternoon, a man named Dean Voss entered second table carrying an umbrella and a leather folder. Dean owned 40% of the restaurant. He had invested after 2 banks rejected Celia and 3 years before the restaurant turned a profit. He did not cook, but he understood leases, margins, and the price of every chair in the dining room. I told you the television piece was too soon, he said. Celia continued cutting damaged drywall from the pantry ceiling. You told me television was free advertising. That was before a dead woman's family accused us of theft. Her daughter posted the video. Her father threatened legal action in front of witnesses. Celia climbed down from the ladder. Dean placed the folder on a dry table. Our refinancing meeting has been postponed. For how long? They did not say. Celia looked toward the kitchen. Without the refinancing, she could not buy Dean's share before his retirement deadline. Their agreement allowed him to sell to another investor after December 15th. "You said you would give me time," she said. "I gave you 3 years. You got paid every quarter. I also put my retirement into a restaurant after your first one collapsed." Dean's voice was not cruel. That made the words harder. "I am 61, he continued. "My wife wants to move closer to our grandchildren. I cannot retire on loyalty and chicken." "What do you want?" "I want the ownership issue resolved before it destroys the value of the business." "There is no ownership issue." "There is now." Dean opened the folder. Inside was a printout of Emma's video and a copy of Ben's business card. "I had counsel look into Mr. Carter," he said. "He is not only a widower with a complaint." Celia waited. Dean turned over the next page. At the top was a photograph taken at a publishing conference 15 years earlier. Ben stood in profile beside his editor. The caption identified him as the writer behind Caleb North. Celia's face emptied. Dean tapped the page. "The man accusing you of stealing his wife's recipe is the critic who destroyed marrow and vine." By evening, the story was online. The headline appeared first on a local food blog. "The secret face of Caleb North returns to the restaurant he helped kill." An hour later, a former editor confirmed Ben's identity. Reporters found old chefs who still remembered his reviews. Some said he had pushed them to improve. Others said he had treated a bad evening like a moral failure. Emma learned the truth when 2 students cornered her outside school. She came home and dropped her backpack on the floor. "You were him." Ben turned off the television. "Emma, sit down." "No. I was going to tell you." "When?" "When I understood what was happening." "You understood. You just didn't want me to. It was a job I had before you were old enough to remember. You wrote the review that closed Celia's restaurant. My review was one factor." "That sounds like something a coward says when he wants the smaller piece of blame." Ben flinched. Emma's eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "Did Mom know?" "Yes. And she became friends with Celia anyway?" "I don't know when she met her." "You knew last night." "I suspect it. You folded the newspaper before I came into the room." Ben realized she had seen him. "I was trying to determine the facts." "You were hiding again." "Emma, the situation is more complicated than a headline." "Then explain it." He could have told her about the gas line failure, about the email he ignored, about the editor who had warned him that a second visit would weaken the column. Instead, he said, "The meal was bad." Emma stared at him. Then she picked up her backpack. "That is your explanation?" "I reviewed the food I was served." "You always say people are more than their worst day." "This was different." "How?" Ben had no answer that did not make him sound worse. Emma walked upstairs. A few minutes later, he heard her bedroom door lock. At second table, 2 reservations were canceled for every new one that came from curiosity. A brick struck the front window shortly after midnight. The following morning, Celia found the words thief and liar painted across the glass. Ben arrived with a bucket, solvent, and a replacement pane. Celia met him on the sidewalk. "You need to leave. I came to fix the window." "I did not ask you to. My daughter's video helped cause this." "Your daughter made a mistake. You made a career." Ben set down the bucket. "I should have returned to marrow and vine." "Yes." "I should have included the circumstances." "Yes." "My editor pushed for publication." Celia's mouth tightened. "Do not bring me another person to blame." Ben looked at the broken window. "You are right." She seemed almost disappointed that he had not argued. "I did not know Leah was helping you," he said. "No." "Did she know who I was when she first came here?" "Yes." The answer struck him harder than he expected. "Why didn't she tell you?" "She did eventually." Ben looked up. Celia folded her arms against the cold. "She came to apologize." "For me?" "For herself. She said she had read my email asking for another review and told you not to go back." Ben remembered the night. Leah had been angry that Celia left the restaurant during service. She called it irresponsible. Ben had agreed. "She changed her mind later," Celia continued. "After her diagnosis, She said she understood what it meant to be expected to perform normally while your life was coming apart. Ben looked through the broken window into the empty dining room. She thought the review was wrong. She thought it was incomplete. Why didn't she tell me? She said you confused changing your mind with surrendering your authority. That sounds like something you would say. It does. Celia paused. Leah said it first. Ben lowered his eyes. She did not come here because she hated you, Celia said. She came because she loved you and was tired of waiting for you to become someone who could be wrong without becoming smaller. Ben took a breath. I am sorry. Celia looked at the paint across the glass. For which part? He could have listed several. Instead, he said, I don't know yet. That is the first honest thing you have said to me. She picked up his bucket and set it back beside him. But you still need to leave. Ben nodded. He respected the boundary. It did not make him feel noble. It made him walk back to his truck carrying tools he had hoped would purchase forgiveness. That afternoon, Dean invited Ben to his office. The room overlooked the river and contained no personal photographs. I am not interested in public revenge, Dean said. I am interested in preventing the restaurant from collapsing. Then stop leaking information to reporters. Dean did not deny it. I needed leverage before your legal claim ruined my investment. I never filed a claim. You announced one in a room full of witnesses. Ben looked at the folder on the desk. Dean opened it. The hospitality group interested in buying my share wants to expand Second Table. 3 locations to start. They believe Ember Chicken could become the signature item. Celia will never agree. Celia may not remain in control. Ben pushed the folder away. This is my wife's name you are packaging. Her name is not on the menu. It will be once this becomes national. Dean leaned back. You can stop that. How? License whatever rights Leah's estate may hold. You approve the name, the story, and the standards. In return, the group pays you $150,000. Ben thought of Emma's college tuition. He thought of the aging roof on their house, the medical debt he had only recently finished paying, and the emergency savings that had never recovered. You said you wanted to protect your wife's work, Dean continued. This gives you the power to do it. What happens to Celia? She can remain as consulting chef if she cooperates. She built the restaurant. I financed it, and Leah helped create the dish. Then you understand why ownership must be clear. Ben did understand. That was the problem. Clarity had always comforted him more than fairness. Dean slid a preliminary agreement across the desk. It did not finalize the sale, but it recognized Ben as the representative of Leah's estate and allowed negotiations to begin. Think about your daughter, Dean said. Sentiment is expensive. College is more expensive. Ben signed. He told himself it was not a final decision. By the time he returned home, Dean had already sent the agreement to the bank, the hospitality group, and Celia. Emma saw the email over his shoulder. You signed with him? It is a preliminary document. You told Celia you wanted the recipe protected. I do. You mean controlled. Emma, this could pay for most of college. I didn't ask you to sell, Mom. Ben stood so quickly that his chair struck the wall. I spent 3 years keeping this family together. So you get to decide what everything is worth. I decide what keeps a roof over our heads. We already have a roof. It needs replacing. That is not the point. It becomes the point when it leaks. Emma grabbed her coat. Where are you going? Aunt Rachel's. You are not leaving in the middle of an argument. I'm not running away. I'm staying with an adult who knows how to finish one. The front door closed behind her. Ben did not follow. That was his next mistake. At Second Table, Dean's lawyers informed Celia that the ownership dispute threatened the restaurant's refinancing. Until it was resolved, he was exercising his contractual right to oversee major business decisions. He removed Ember Chicken from the menu. Then he canceled the community supper Celia hosted every month for retired teachers, widowers, and families referred by the neighborhood clinic. It loses money, he said. It feeds people. That is not the same as running a business. It is why the business exists. Dean looked tired rather than triumphant. I saved this place once. You invested in it when no one else would, and now you think that means it never truly became mine. I think it means I get to leave without losing everything. Celia looked around the dining room. She had spent 6 years rebuilding her reputation one table at a time. Now the restaurant was full of strangers photographing their plates, hoping to witness a scandal. "Give me until December 15th, she said. That was already the agreement. Do not sell before then. Dean gathered his papers. Find the money. Resolve the recipe. Prove the restaurant can survive this. And if I cannot, the group takes control in January." After he left, Celia removed the blue pot from the stove. She cleaned it, dried it, and placed it in a cardboard box. For the first time in years, the kitchen ended service without the smell of orange peel darkening over flame. 3 days later, Ben visited the old publishing office downtown. His former editor, Martin Chase, had retired but agreed to meet him in the lobby. Martin was 70 now. He walked with a cane and still wore shirts with collars too tight for his neck. "You look worse without the mystery," Martin said. "Good to see you too. I told you anonymity made people imagine cheekbones." They sat near a window. Ben placed the Marrow and Vine review on the table. "I want the original notes." Martin's humor disappeared. "Why?" "Because Celia said the restaurant had a gas failure and her son was injured. Both were true. And we left it out." "You left it out. You edited the column. I cut 2 sentences. The conclusions were yours." Ben looked at him. Martin sighed. "You were brilliant, Ben. You could describe food better than anyone I knew. But you were also angry." "At what?" "Anything that disappointed you." Ben waited. Martin tapped the old review. "Leah called me after this ran." Ben's chest tightened. "What did she say?" "She asked me to send you back." "You never told me." "I did tell you." Ben remembered the conversation only after Martin repeated it. A second visit would look weak. That was what Ben had said. Readers trusted Caleb North because he never reconsidered. Martin opened a file on his tablet. "There is one more thing." It was an email from Celia, written 2 days after the review. She did not ask for praise. She did not deny the failed dinner. She asked for a short correction stating that the gas line had broken and that she left because her 17-year-old son was in surgery. Ben had responded with one sentence. "Circumstances explain failure. They do not erase it." Martin watched him read. "I thought it was a strong line at the time," he said. "It is a cruel line." "Yes. Why did you publish me for so long?" "Because cruelty sounds like courage when it is written well." Ben stared through the lobby window. "What happened to Celia's son?" "He recovered from the accident. Died 8 years later from an overdose." Ben closed his eyes. "Did Leah know?" "I assume so." That explained the edge in Celia's voice whenever Emma entered the room. It explained why she tolerated Emma's anger longer than she tolerated Ben's certainty. Ben stood. "I want to publish a correction." 11 years later? "Yes. It will not restore her restaurant." "I know. It will make you look worse." "I know. Your syndication contract had a confidentiality clause." "I don't care." Martin studied him. "You always cared. I am trying something else." Before leaving, Ben gave Martin a copy of the agreement he had signed with Dean. "Can I get out of this?" Martin read the first page. "You need a lawyer. I need your opinion." "My opinion is that you signed because money allowed you to call control protection." Ben took the document back. "You sound like Leah." "That is because Leah was usually right about you." For the first time in days, Ben laughed. It lasted only a second. It still helped. That evening, Ben drove to second table. The dining room was closed. Celia sat alone in booth 6 beside the radiator, sorting invoices. Ben remained near the door. "I won't come closer unless you ask." She looked up. "What do you want?" "To give you this." He placed a folder on the nearest table. Inside was a signed statement declaring that Leah's estate would not pursue ownership of the recipe. Celia did not touch it. "You already signed with Dean." "I am withdrawing." "Can you?" "I may be sued." "Will you be?" "Probably threatened. Possibly sued." "Why should I believe you?" "You shouldn't yet." Celia stared at him. Ben continued. I found your email about marrow and vine. I found my response. Her face tightened. I am publishing a correction under my real name. Not because it fixes anything. It does not. But the record should show what I chose to leave out. Celia looked down at the invoices. Leah wanted you to do that 11 years ago. I know. She waited a long time for you to become brave enough to look foolish. I thought bravery was never backing down. No, that was your brand. Ben accepted the words. I signed Dean's agreement because I thought controlling the recipe would protect Leah's name and provide for Emma. And now I think Leah gave the recipe away because she wanted it to keep feeding people after she could not. Celia's eyes moved toward the dark kitchen. She did not give it away, she said. She left her half with me. Ben nodded. That is different. Yes. He turned toward the door. Ben. He stopped. Celia finally opened the folder. The correction will bring more attention. I know. Some of it will be ugly. Yes. Do not expect me to thank you. I don't. Good. It was not forgiveness. It was the first conversation they had ended without either person trying to win. Ben's correction was published the next morning. He named himself as Caleb North. He described the broken gas line, Celia's son's accident, the request for a second visit, and his refusal. He did not blame his editor. He did not ask readers to excuse him. The final paragraph contained no elegant lesson. It said only, I wrote that circumstances could explain failure, but could not erase it. I now understand that the same is true of my review. The article spread farther than Emma's video. Some readers praised Ben. Others called the correction self-serving. Several chefs described injuries left by reviews he barely remembered writing. Ben read every message once. He replied only to the people who asked factual questions. When one reporter requested an interview, Ben declined. He was finished performing remorse. Dean responded by accelerating the sale. The hospitality group scheduled a final inspection of second table for December 14th, one day before Celia's deadline. Their proposed contract placed all menu development under corporate ownership. Celia could stay for 1 year, after which her position would be reviewed. The blue pot remained in its box. Emma stayed with Aunt Rachel for 5 nights. On the 6th, she came home to retrieve a textbook. She found Ben at the kitchen table surrounded by documents. I'm not signing with Dean, he said. I read your article. I should have told you who I was. Yes. I should have followed you when you left. Yes. I keep thinking providing for you gives me the right to decide what you need. Emma leaned against the doorway. What happens if you break the agreement? Dean may sue. The hospitality group will withdraw its offer to pay for the recipe. You lose the money. We never had the money. You already spent it in your head. Ben nodded. Several times. Emma looked at the papers. What are those? Celia needs to buy Dean's share by Monday. Do you have the money? No. Then why are you calculating things? Because money is not the only part of the problem. Ben had spent his career keeping old buildings operating with limited budgets. He understood maintenance costs, staffing schedules, utility waste, and the difference between an emergency and a neglected routine. Second Table's books showed a viable restaurant buried beneath a bad loan structure, rising insurance costs, and equipment repairs that arrived without warning. Celia did not need a rescuer. She needed a plan a lender could believe. I can help her build a 5-year maintenance schedule, he said. The staff wants to form a cooperative and buy a small ownership share. A neighborhood credit union is willing to review the numbers if Dean agrees to an installment buyout. Will he? I don't know. What does Celia say? She has not answered my calls. Emma almost smiled. Good. Ben looked at her. She should make you work for it. She should. Emma walked to the table. I need to tell people I was wrong about her. You deleted the video. I deleted it after everyone already saved it. That is not the same as correcting it. You do not owe the internet every detail. I owe Celia. Ben saw Leah in the way Emma lifted her chin when afraid. What are you going to say? The truth. That I posted before I knew the truth. That people damaged her restaurant because of something I made. And that being angry does not make you accurate. Ben swallowed. That is more than I understood at 16. You were still learning it at 49. That seems unnecessary. It was a little necessary. She sat beside him. For the first time since the dinner, they worked on the same problem. Emma contacted former customers who had defended Second Table online. She did not ask for donations. She asked whether they would buy membership shares in a community cooperative if the restaurant offered voting rights on its monthly supper program. Ben built a maintenance budget and found that the restaurant could save nearly $18,000 a year by replacing 2 failing refrigeration units before they caused emergency losses. The cooks created a staffing plan. The servers agreed to purchase small shares through payroll deductions. Celia finally returned one call. She listened to the proposal, then said, "I will not let my employees risk their savings to protect me." Ben answered carefully, "They are not offering to protect you. They are asking to own part of what they built." Silence followed. "That is not how I planned this," Celia said. "No, I would lose control." You sound pleased." "I am trying not to." She exhaled. "Send me the numbers." It was not trust. It was work. That was better. On December 14th, the hospitality group arrived at Second Table. Dean walked them through the kitchen, while Celia stood beside the Blue Pots cardboard box. The group's representative discussed seating capacity, brand consistency, and the possibility of replacing the monthly community supper with private corporate events. At 4 o'clock, Ben entered with Emma, 2 credit union officers, 6 employees, and Martin Chase. Dean's face darkened. "This is a private inspection." Celia stepped forward. "I invited them." Dean looked at her. "We have an agreement." "We have several agreements," she said. "That is the problem." Ben placed 3 folders on a table. The first contained the withdrawal of his estate claim and the permanent assignment of any recipe rights Leah possessed to Celia. The second contained the cooperative's purchase commitments and operating plan. The third contained an installment proposal for Dean's shares, backed by the credit union if the restaurant maintained its current revenue for 6 months. Dean opened the first folder. "You signed a negotiation agreement with me." "I did. If you interfere with this sale, our attorneys will respond." "I understand. You could lose your home defending this." Ben glanced at Emma. She looked frightened. So was he. "I understand that too." The hospitality representative closed her tablet. "Without exclusive rights to the recipe, the valuation changes." "That is not our problem," Celia said. "It becomes your problem if the sale collapses." Celia looked toward her employees. For years, she had treated accepting help as a step toward losing everything again. Now the people around her were not offering rescue. They were asking for responsibility. She turned to Dean. "I will accept the cooperative structure." Dean stared at her. "You told me you would never divide ownership." "I was wrong." The admission seemed to unsettle him more than resistance would have. Celia continued. "You invested when no one else would. You deserve to be paid. The proposal gives you interest, monthly payments, and a lien until the balance is cleared. Over 7 years. 6 if revenue grows. I wanted to retire now." "I know." Dean looked around the dining room. His investment had not been a gift. It had also not been only money. He had spent years reviewing invoices, negotiating insurance, and covering payroll during 2 disastrous winters. "You think I am the villain in this story," he said. "No," Celia replied. "I think you were tired. Tired people can still do damage." Dean looked at Ben. "And what are you?" Ben answered, "Late." Martin coughed into his fist to hide a laugh. Dean turned to the credit union officers. "You would actually finance this?" One of them nodded. "Under the revised plan, yes. The restaurant is profitable. Its risk came from concentration of control, deferred maintenance, and the unresolved ownership claim." Dean read through the proposal again. "I want a larger initial payment." Celia shook her head. "We cannot do it. The corporate offer pays immediately." "Then take it," she said. "But you will have to sell knowing every employee here intends to leave. The recipe is not included, and the person whose name created this scandal will publicly oppose the deal." Ben looked at her. That had not been part of the plan. Celia met his eyes. She was not asking permission. Dean walked to the window. Outside, people had begun gathering on the sidewalk. Emma had invited them to the monthly community supper before Dean canceled it. She had made one thing clear in her new video. This was not a protest. Anyone who came had to purchase a meal, volunteer, or apply for a cooperative share. Retired teachers stood beside hospital workers. Former patients from Leah's cooking group arrived carrying folding chairs. Neighbors who had once believed Celia stole the recipe now waited to apologize in person. Dean watched them through the glass. "You planned this crowd to pressure me." Emma answered before anyone else could. "I planned dinner." "There is no dinner." From the kitchen came the scrape of a wooden spoon. 3 slow circles. 1 tap against the rim. Everyone turned. Celia's sous chef stood beside the blue pot. "We put the chicken in 2 hours ago," he said. "We figured the meeting could go either way." Celia looked at him. "You used the last case of oranges? You were going to fire me for something eventually." "I was not." "Then this is disappointing." A few of the employees laughed. The tension in the room loosened. Dean returned to the table. He signed the installment agreement on one condition. "If you miss 2 payments, we renegotiate." Celia nodded. 1 missed payment triggers a meeting. 2 triggers renegotiation. Dean studied her. Still difficult. Still here. He signed. The hospitality group left without the restaurant, the recipe, or the story it had planned to sell. No one applauded. There were too many chairs to unfold and too many plates to carry. Ben spent the next hour repairing a loose table leg while Emma checked cooperative forms near the front door. Celia returned the blue pot to the stove. When the first pan of ember chicken came out, she placed 1 plate in front of Ben. He tasted it. Celia waited. Ben chewed carefully. "It needs salt," he said. Her eyes narrowed. He raised 1 finger. Would you like my opinion?" Celia considered the question. "No." Ben nodded. "Then it is perfect." She took the plate from him and served it to an 80-year-old retired custodian, sitting alone near the radiator. 6 months later, the words painted on second table's front window had changed. Beneath the restaurant's name were 3 smaller lines. Employee and community owned. Monthly supper, first Thursday. Ember chicken, created by Leah Carter and Celia Grant. Emma had written the final line. Ben no longer reviewed restaurants. On Thursday evenings, he repaired loose hinges, replaced filters, and left the kitchen before anyone asked for his opinion. Celia never gave him Leah's black notebook. She did let him read 1 page at a time. Some pages made him laugh. Others forced him to sit quietly in booth 6 until he could trust himself to speak. He learned that grief did not give him ownership over every part of Leah's life. It gave him a responsibility to listen when those parts were returned to him. On the anniversary of Leah's death, Ben and Emma arrived before opening. The blue pot was already warming on the stove. Emma dropped orange peels into the flame and watched their edges darken. Then she stirred the sauce 3 times and tapped the spoon once against the rim. Ben heard Leah in the sound. This time, he did not reach for the spoon. He pulled up a chair and stayed. Sometimes the hardest thing to inherit is not a recipe, but the truth about how someone chose to share it. Who is one person you wish you had asked one more question while you still had the chance? Share your answer in the comments, and subscribe for more stories about family, healing, justice, and second chances.